keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. Ooh. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only go.
What's going on, guys? Jake here, back with our video, and today I'm going to be giving you my weekly mock draft. We're about 2 weeks out from the NFL draft, so we're actually starting to solidify a lot of the kind of picks that we're wanting to make. But before we get into it, please make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you agree or disagree with that we talk about in here, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content that I'm going to be putting out, whether it's NFL draft or other things, other rankings, or maybe some preseason stuff here in a couple months. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. With 2 weeks out, there's a lot of rumors going around, a lot of stuff that we've kind of started to kind of get the idea of how the draft order is going to be going, what teams are going to be picking who. And number one's pretty much solidified that the Titans have pretty much, they're going to take Cam Ward, number one overall. They need a quarterback. They've pretty much, throughout free agency, all they did was buff up the offensive line and help out defensively. So they're kind of preparing whoever's going to be the next quarterback. They didn't address the quarterback position at all. 2 weeks out, they would have done that by now. So they're going to go Cam Ward, and it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to be taking QB Cam Ward, who's number one on a lot of people's boards. Now, number two is starting to become interesting because a lot of us and a lot of people kind of had the idea and kind of assumption that this was going to be Abdul Carter here to pair up with Myles Garrett. It still could be, it still could go Abdul Carter, but a lot of the reports, the draft odds, betting odds have shifted towards Travis Hunter. Adam Schefter just came out with a comment about 2 days ago that said the Browns are very likely to be taking Travis Hunter number two overall. So I'm doing this based on what I think will happen, not what I would do, because I would take Abdul Carter here. But Travis Hunter, I mean, they still need weapons. They're definitely going to be able to make a move for one of these quarterbacks. The big rumor right now is that the Browns really like Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart, one of those two, and they actually have the 33rd pick, which is the first pick of the second round. So I very likely think that they are going to move up from that 33rd pick into the late first round, maybe the jump the Steelers, I would think, to end up trying to draft either Milroe or Jackson Dart to be able to get their quarterback. 'Cause if they end up rolling out Kenny Pickett as their starting quarterback, they definitely messed up, and it's definitely going to be a huge issue for them. Moving on to number three, a lot of people thought, including myself, this would be Shedeur Sanders. I thought that they would end up taking a quarterback. They went out and signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. I think they're still going to have to end up getting their franchise guy at some point in this draft. But a lot of the rumors are, and a lot of the sources are saying that they're actually going to pass on quarterback here at number three overall, and they're not going to take Shedeur. So that leaves them taking Abdul Carter. This could be how you look at it, it could be very interesting. They still have Brian Burns. They still have Kayvon Thibodeau, who's been a little bit disappointing based on where he was drafted. So bringing in Abdul Carter onto that, it kind of causes a little bit of, compact conjunction in the edge position. So a little bit too many bodies there. But, Abdul Carter's definitely a difference maker. You can pair him up. If you're going to pair him up and with Myles Garrett in Cleveland, you can definitely end up potentially having a nice, decent depth rotation on the edge position. So it really does make sense that you could end up. They just need impact players that are going to bring more talent to the team. And if you don't like the quarterback, don't reach on them in this draft. So it makes perfect sense there. Now, number four, the Patriots. It makes a huge issue for them. They're definitely hoping that the two quarterbacks, Shedeur and Cam Ward, go in the top three picks so that they can either get Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. Here in this situation, it definitely causes them an issue if both those guys go, because then they're two guys, it who they need and who they want to pick at this point. It would be kind of a reach no matter what. So they're mainly going to be looking to trade back here at the number four spot, but in a draft like this where there's no like huge stars, maybe someone tries to move up for Genty. Maybe the Patriots just take Ashton Genty here at number four. I could easily see that. But I think that they're going to look to get some protection for Drake May. Their offensive line wasn't very good. They definitely upgraded the defense and free agency. So I think that they're going to look for their franchise tackle on Will Campbell. Now, me personally, I'm not the biggest Will Campbell guy. But a lot of NFL teams, from what reports are very high on Will Campbell compared to others. So I think it's just a situation where the league and the NFL teams are going to view him higher than what I do, obviously, because I'm not an NFL scout. So him coming in to be that franchise left tackle, he's 6'6". You know, the arms are a little bit of a difficulty, or they're shorter, but he did it for 3 years at LSU. I just don't like how he plays. I think he plays too tall, but they definitely do need to be able to get that protection for Drake May in there to be able to have him standing up to hopefully not take all the hits that he did last year. Number five, this has been the most obvious one for a while. The top 10's kind of starting to become a little bit chalk of kind of the same picks over and over. But number five, Mason Graham. He fits the interior. The Jags just extended the 5th-year option for Trayvon Walker. And they really do need that pocket pushing interior defensive lineman that's going to cause disruption, whether going after the quarterback and being a pass rusher, or whether actually being able to stop the run. Either way, the interior of their defensive line was one of the worst in the NFL. Mason Graham really fits there. If you want to say maybe he could be a little bit too small, which doesn't really cause any issues because if you look at his tape, he has all the production in the world throughout the last 2 years. The Raiders number six has also kind of been, a chalk pick. I could see Pete Carroll falling in love with one of the defensive guys like a Jalen Walker and taking him number six here because he's done it in the past when he was in Seattle with people like Jordan Brooks. If there's a defensive freak, Pete Carroll will most likely fall in love with him. But at this point, I'm gonna have them taking what everybody else does. Makes sense. They need offensive weapons. Them taking Ashton Jeanty would definitely help out their offense and help out Geno Smith on the offensive end. So Ashton Jeanty coming in to pretty much just take over that running back role and be able to have a big ground and pound offense that Pete Carroll was like the head in Seattle years ago. But I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up taking one of the defensive guys that he ends up falling in love with, like a Jalen Walker. Number seven. The Jets, you could look at Tyler Warren here, but I think that they're going to look to complete their offensive line and go with Armand Membu at right tackle. Armand Membu would fit in right there. Really, what they need is a right tackle. Armand Membu played right tackle last year in Missouri. He's a great outside zone scheme blocker, which is actually what they ran the last couple of years. I don't know if they'll still run that with Aaron Glenn coming in, but I would assume so. Aaron Glenn's going to want to run the ball. How do you do that? You get the most dominant offensive line like they did in Detroit, where they took Penei Sewell. Now, is Armand Membu Penei Sewell? No, he's nowhere near as good as a prospect as he was, but he's still going to come in and be very effective with how he plays in the outside zone and his initial first step movement that he gets on guys in the running game. And that's really what the Jets are going to be looking to do is to be able to come out and run the ball with Justin Fields. Number eight, you have the Carolina Panthers. This is another guy I'm not super high on, but the NFL's more high on him, and he's going to go early in this draft based on sources and what other people see. He's rated kind of low in this rankings, but if you go to it, Jalen Walker, whoever drafts him, he's going to be an edge presence. The Panthers need defensive help. They have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, if not the worst defense. So they really just need defensive help there to be able to get more talent, to try to get more stops to help out Bryce Young. But to be able to upgrade their defense, they went out in free agency and actually upgraded their secondary quite a bit, and they did a good job there. Now they just need to focus on defense line, whether it's an interior piece, maybe Mason Graham falls here on a shocking selection. I don't know. But Jalen Walker would at least come in and give them that edge presence. He's going to be a little bit of a tweener, so it's going to be interesting to see if they use him in that linebacker edge presence type role. But overall, he is going to be a little bit undersized, and he's going to have to use a little bit of his speed, bend, and twitchiness as an athlete to be able to get past a lot of these defenders to make a lot of a presence there. But a lot of the NFL teams really do like him, and they scout him very high. So with Shedeur Sanders falling a little bit here at quarterback, this is where his fall is going to end. Kellen Moore is going to look to get his guy. Now, a lot of people think that the Saints could be looking the quarterback if he ends up falling in the right situation. Shedeur Sanders, it's a dome team, is the Saints, and then most people in the division are good weather teams. So I think that's a great fit for Shedeur to be able to go into those type of systems with Kellen Moore and to be able to go into that type of environment. I think the weather would be a good case for him to be able to help him out with him not having the strongest arm possible. And they really set up that future plan. Derek Carr, I know they just got the extension or contract rework, but that's really not setting them up to be able to keep Derek Carr. They're not going to end up keeping him. They're going to move on from him in a year or two. You might as well get the guy now to be able to have the plan ready for whenever you want to move on from Derek Carr. Coming at number 10, this could be another area for Tyler Warren. They already have Cole Kmet, similar type guys, but Ben Johnson ran a lot of two tight end systems in Detroit with Brock Wright and their other tight end, I'm completely blanking on right now. How Sam Laporta in Detroit, but Chicago, I think they really need a running back. They're hoping Ashton Genty falls here, but I think Amarion Hampton is ranked a lot higher than what people think. I think he's going to go very early in this draft, and I think he's closer to Genty than what people think. There's been reports that some teams even have him rated as the number one running back, even ahead of Genty. I think the Bears are going to see that, and he's 6 foot. He's a big back, along with his speed and his vision that he ends up having to be able to make a lot of these plays that he did at North Carolina. That's really what the Bears are going to be looking for. They win, they upgrade their offensive line. Now it's time to help out Caleb in that run game by getting that dominant running back to be able to support him and to be able to lean on that running game, so like you don't need as much from Caleb, and they can kind of set up that Detroit offense in Chicago with Ben Johnson. Number 11, the 49ers. This could be offensive line, but I think at this point as well, they had to lose a lot of guys in free agency on that defense. And Robert Saleh bringing over the zone scheme. I know he kind of worked with Sauce Gardner to be able to run the man a little bit, but it was mostly zone is what they ran in New York. And Jahdae Barron from Texas, he's one of the best corners on the board. I think he's going to be the number one corner taken, probably him or Will Johnson. But he's Jahdae Barron is a zone corner. He could be end up being a slot guy. Is he mainly going to be on the boundary? I don't know. We'll see if it works out. But he's mainly going to be a zone guy slash a slot corner. So I think Robert Saleh is going to value that and see that and be able to have a valuable secondary that they're going to have to replace several guys like Tre'Davious Ward. And Barron's going to be able to come in and take over that role for them on that defense and the 49ers, and then they're going to be able to attack the offensive line later in the draft in the second round. The Dallas Cowboys, a lot of people usually have this as Matthew Golden. There was a recent report that they could look at Tedero McMillan, and a lot of teams, McMillan's one of those guys that he could go early in at number 8, or he could go late at number 22 to the Chargers. Here, I'm actually going to mix it up. I'm going to have him going Tedero McMillan here. This will be a good complementary piece to CeeDee Lamb to help out Dak Prescott in that offense. CeeDee Lamb could work mostly out of the slot. Tyrell McMillan could work out of the slot as well, but he's mostly going to be that big body outside guy. So it could be a great combination with him as well. And with it being such a deep running back class, you have Amarion Hampton and Genty already off the board. So the Cowboys can wait till later in the second round or potentially the third round to be able to attack that running back position, and be able to deal with that later to be able to get another weapon. Maybe you go ahead and get a Judkins later in the draft. Maybe get a Travion Henderson. So they can really attack that later. Right now, you're getting the number one receiver off the board on your board, that you feel like is the best player in this draft at that point. And that's usually what the Cowboys do. They pretty much just let the draft come to them. Whoever falls to them, they end up taking the best player on the board. And that's what they do here with Tedder McMillan. The Dolphins, Teron Armstead just retired. I think that they do need to protect Tua and make that a focus. I think they're going to be looking for more of a tackle. And one of my favorite offensive linemen in this class that I think is going to be the best pure tackle in this class, the Dolphins are going to take Kelvin Banks to be that left tackle for him to replace Armstead and hopefully be able to protect Tua. Now, they do need help in the secondary, so that could be a need, but I think their main focus right now would be offensive line to be able to protect Tua. I could easily see him taking a corner here, but with a lot of those corners and having a lot of injury issues, that's going to be more available in the second round. Then I don't know if Josh Connerly or somebody's going to fall, but Kelvin Banks here is going to be the best true tackle for him. He has the combination of speed, size, movement, and that zone scheme that he ends up getting, and he has that combination of very good pass blocking technique. So that's really what the Dolphins need to be able to protect Tua and get to that second level. And then I think this here at number 14, this is what the Colts dream of. They dream of Tyler Warren falling into their lap, and that's exactly what happens here. They just need to get more offensive weapons. They ended up letting a couple key guys on the offensive line leave in free agency. So I could see him end up going offensive line here. There's several places that the Colts could end up going, but if Tyler Warren's still on the board to this situation in this draft at number 14, you end up taking him because you can use him all over the field, whether it's in the slot, whether it's lined up at the end of the line of scrimmage. He's just gonna be a monster that you could end up. You could even put him there back there at quarterback in certain wildcat situations. I don't know if you do that if you have Anthony Richardson, but you could if you wanted to. And he's gonna be a great safety valve to help out the development of Anthony Richardson. And if Anthony Richardson doesn't work out next year with the weapons that you have and with Tyler Warren, then he's probably not your guy, and then you're moving on to another quarterback in next year's draft. Number 15, the Atlanta Falcons coming in here. I think that they do need an edge player. They end up letting go of a couple players. They end up letting go of Grady Jarrett. So they need an interior piece or they need an edge player. And I think that they're known for kind of taking the athletic freaks. So I think they're going to fall in love with the potential and the athletic ability that Shamar Stewart actually has at Texas A&M. He could end up falling, but he's all about upside. And I think in this class, you have a lot of these guys that are just high upside guys. So you end up taking the one with the best physical abilities and the best physical traits, like he had at the combine when he put up one of the best combines in NFL history. So I think that they really like that, considering that they're the team that ends up taking Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, all these athletic guys, all these athletic kind of freaks. So you end up taking that guy, but on defense to be a great edge presence on that defensive line. And they really just need to upgrade that defense after spending a lot of draft value on that offense. Number 16, I think that they're going to look to get more weapons for Kyler Murray. I think somebody like Matthew Golden here makes a lot of sense. He could be that speedy guy that you could run out of the slot or on the outside. That goes well with Marvin Harrison. I think he would be a great compliment. If you watched a lot of Texas games, Matthew Golden's just a playmaker. Anytime that Texas needed a big play in any key situation, Matthew Golden was the guy that ended up coming up and making that big play that they ended up having. So, the Cardinals, I think they really just want to get more weapons to be able to pair someone up with Marvin Harrison, and that's really what they would do in here in this situation with Matthew Golden. I know that they still have offensive line and defense line issues. They ended up getting a couple edge players in free agency like Josh Sweat, but I think that they still could use to upgrade that interior defense line and that offense line. But I think that they could wait in the second round. Right now, you're getting the number two receiver off the board compared to like the number three or four offensive lineman at this point. So you end up just helping and trying to get weapons for Kyler Murray. Moving on, number 17, the Bengals, they still have not solved their Trey Henderson issue. And based on how that goes, you could either look to replace him or get him another piece to go along and play with him. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up going with somebody like a Jahad Campbell after losing Sam Hubbard here. But right now, I'm going to have him taking the edge presence. Mike Green. Mike Green was one of the most productive players in college football last year. He ended up having the most tackles for loss. He ended up actually having the most sacks in college football last year as well. So he was just all time, all productive. The question that he had was, can he do this against the highest level? And he went out in the Senior Bowl and dominated everybody at the Senior Bowl. He's kind of fallen down a little bit from where he initially was at the very beginning, but that's just because he didn't really show out at the combine. He didn't end up working out. He's kind of dealing with an injury. So he's going to be falling down a little bit. But the Bengals, I think it's a great fit for him to be able to get a match with Trey Henderson to go alongside and play opposite of him. The Seahawks, I really thought that they would end up attacking offense line in free agency. They went out and they got Cooper Kupp, they got Sam Darnold. They really need offensive line badly, especially interior offensive line. And this is one that I've had for a while in a lot of my mocks. And I'm going to go with Gray Zabel. I think he's more valuable to the Seahawks than any other team as well because they need a lot of interior presence on that offensive line. And Gray Zabel can play any of the five offensive line positions, especially center, is what the Seahawks really need. So we could come in and immediately start there at center to be able to help out Sam Darnold and that interior offensive line presence so we don't see a repeat of what happened last year in the playoffs with the Vikings whenever Sam Darnold just kept getting sacked over and over again. Number 19, the Buccaneers. Jahad Campbell is another great piece here because they've been looking for that linebacker replacement for Devin White ever since he fell off after that Super Bowl. They still do have Levante David, but he's getting old. I think this is probably going to be his last year coming up. So it really does make sense for him to be able to come in and go with that Buccaneers team to step in next to Levante David and then end up taking over for him the next year. I could easily see him taking another edge piece, but this really does make sense for the Buccaneers to be able to take this guy. The Denver Broncos. Now they're in a difficult situation. Do they take Colson Loveland here? Do they end up They just signed Evan Ingram. They're probably looking for one of the receivers or a weapon on the offensive side. I think Jim Harbaugh is really going to value the trenches here. And because Amarion Hampton's off the board, Genty's off the board, because Evan Ingram's off the board, and I said Jim Harbaugh. I don't know what I'm talking about. But the Broncos, I think Sean Payton is really going to look for that interior defense. He's going to wait for running back in the second round. And I think that they're going to go with Walter Nolan. He's a guy that's rated very highly on a lot of people's boards on that interior defense line, and he could be a great playmaker for a lot of people. And the Denver Broncos, I think they'll wait for running back, maybe get a Quinshon Judkins, a Travion Henderson, somebody in there, and a Cam Skattebo in the later rounds, and be able to deal with that later. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to be looking for quarterback, whether it's Jackson Dart, Jalen Milrow. The Browns could end up moving up with the Broncos if but all these offensive guys are gone. So the Broncos could look to trade back here. But the Steelers, I think, with Jackson Dart on the board, I think that's really who they're going to prefer. I really do like Jackson Dart. I think it's a little bit early here at pick 21. I think he's more of a better of a second round guy, but he's definitely going to end up going in the first round. Somebody's going to take one of these quarterbacks late in the first round, whether it's the Browns moving up for him or whether it's the Steelers end up taking him here at 21. The Chargers here, they Colston Loveland falls into their lap at tight end. He could be a great weapon for Justin Herbert. He's a Jim Harbaugh guy. Jim Harbaugh is the head coach, and he could be either a slot receiver or he could be a great quick weapon for Justin Herbert after not having a lot of struggles in the playoffs and not having a lot of weapons to help support him. Green Bay Packers, they're probably moving on from Jair Alexander, so they're looking for corner. Edge could be a good pick here, so maybe a Ezra Roku would be a guy that could end up going here. But right now, I'm gonna keep it with Will Johnson falling down on the board because of his injury issues and some questions about his speed. So I'm gonna end up taking Will Johnson here to be that Jair Alexander replacement in that main corner that kind of falls into their lap. But there's a lot of questions based on his skills, his injuries. He didn't really do too much this past year. So he's really going to have to answer those. But I think a team's going to really like him and fall in love with him and end up taking him here in this first round. But he's going to fall down the board a little bit. Minnesota Vikings, they need defensive secondary help. I think somebody that could go really well with them is Nick Emanwari from South Carolina. Nick Emanwari ended up having probably the best safety combine of all time. And with him here, the Vikings, who knows how much longer Harrison Smith's going to be able to play, and he could come in, play next to Harrison Smith, be that box safety type guy that he is, and play with him, and then end up, once Harrison Smith's done after this year, he could end up taking over for him and be pretty much just go from one great safety to another great safety. As Nick and Emin Warrior, I think he's going to be the first safety picked in this draft just based off his athletic ability and what he did at the combine. Number 25, I think that they're still going to be looking. They got rid of Army Tunsil. They know getting rid of Kenyon Green. So I think that they're going to be looking for offensive line. And Josh Simmons is a guy that could have been the first tackle in this draft, but he ended up getting hurt 6 games in the season, tearing his ACL and having a season-ending injury. So they're really looking to be able to protect CJ Stroud. They could tack wide receiver later in the draft. It's very deep. So you go ahead and get your guy now to be able to help CJ Stroud as you pretty much reworked that entire offensive line after trading one of the best tackles in football for pretty much nothing. And then you traded for CJ Gardner Johnson. So I think that they really do need to help protect and get that franchise left tackle guy that they don't have anymore on the team. The Rams, the Rams really do need to protect Matthew Stafford as well. They also need corner, and this is someone that a lot of scouts like Daniel Jeremiah have said that he thinks that he's going to go in the first round. He has a lot of questions on his tackling ability, but I'm gonna go with Maxwell Harrison. James Jeremiah was pretty adamant that he thinks Harrison is going to be a first round pick by one of these late round teams. And he's a guy that his coverage is kind of questionable, but he has that speed that he showed off at the combine, being one of the fastest corners there, to be able to come in and cover a lot of guys and be able to make up with his coverage being bad, with his speed. His biggest questions is tackling. He's not the best tackler, so he's going to have to improve on that at this level whenever he comes into this league. The Ravens, looking at it, they still have Kyle Hamilton, but to get somebody that's been falling on the board to be able to play next to him, Malachi Starks would be a great fit in here to go along with Kyle Hamilton. It's pretty much the same thing with safety that's not very valued, falls down the board, and the Ravens end up taking them to be able to pair both of them up and have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Detroit Lions, they ended up losing a couple offensive line pieces, especially Kevin Zeiler and pretty much their whole coaching staff. I think that they're going to want to keep having one of the most dominant offensive lines in the league, and they're going to take a guy that some people actually have fallen out of the first round. This is one of my favorite offensive linemen in the class. He's the most explosive, Tyler Booker, going in and replacing Kevin Zeiler in there at that right guard spot. I think that you're pretty much just setting yourself up for an even better offensive line that you could have for somebody that could come in and block for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery next to Penei Sewell. And he's very explosive in the running game. He's probably the best offensive lineman when working to the second level in this class. So he's probably one of my favorite offensive linemen in here. And the Detroit Lions pretty much get a steal with him falling down the board. The Washington Commanders ended up letting go of a lot of defensive guys. They ended up having to let go of Jonathan Allen for that interior defensive line presence. They had one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So I think that they're going to want to help that and go defensive line. And a guy that has very mixed evaluations. Some people are very high on him. Some people are not. I'm going to go with Donovan Ezeroku from Boston College. He's one of those guys. He has production and he has the tools and potential. He has that body frame that you really want out of the edge players, and he has a very twitchy first step on the defensive line at the edge position. And the Commanders are really going to need that. Dan Quinn's going to value it, and they're going to overall help to pretty much improve that defensive run scheme, or that worst defense in the NFL against the run. The Buffalo Bills as well, they're going to help. They pretty much got gashed towards the end of the year in the running game. They could upgrade their secondary, but a lot of the corners are kind of falling down the board. So I think you can wait on that. And I think that they're going to look at the upside of a Mykel Williams here and end up taking him. And Mykel Williams reminds me a lot of Trayvon Walker. He doesn't really have the production that you'd really want out of most of the teams, but he really has that frame that you'd want and pretty much the potential that you could end up coaching and developing. The Chiefs, ever since the Super Bowl, they're definitely looking to upgrade their offensive line. They had to let go of Joe Thuney, so I think that they need to get a left tackle replacement. Joe Thuney actually played left tackle for him, even though he's mostly a guard usually. And they're going to go with Josh Connerly here to step in and be that left tackle to try to help protect Patrick Mahomes so he's not getting sacked over and over again like he did in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. And the Eagles here at 32, a lot of the rumors is that they're definitely going to be making a trade on draft night, one or two, whether it's moving up or back. And they're usually known for letting people fall into the laps and end up getting a steal. And that's what's going to happen here. They're going to take James Pierce. There's a lot of question marks about James Pierce's character issues. But the Eagles are going to see that. They need an edge presence. They ended up losing Josh Sweat. They ended up losing an interior piece in Milton Williams. So end up going with James Pierce, who is a crazy athlete. He showed it off at the combine. He's one of the fastest guys there. He just has those character concerns. I think the Eagles are really going to be able to handle and be able to fix out, and they're not really going to care about. And they're going to be able to handle him in their culture that they have. So this is my mock draft about 2 weeks out. I might do about one or two more before the NFL draft and have a final mock in about 2 weeks the day before. So make sure to check out the channel and stay up to date with that. Please make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you agreed or disagree with that I talked about in here, and make sure to subscribe to the channel to be able to keep out with all the videos I'm going to be putting out about the NFL. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, feel like John Moran. Need a triple double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple. I don't drive the ball. Now I never fumble. I'm the MVP. Now I feel like Russell. Feel like John Moran. Need a triple double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got